In today's video, I'm going to be sharing all the secrets I know about the book publishing industry. We're going to be talking money, contracts, timelines, basically everything I've learned through the process of publishing my book, The Sock Project, a craft book. So it's in the niche craft book industry, but some of this information may apply across book publishing in general. So stay tuned and I'll be sharing everything I know coming up. Hello and welcome. My name is Summer and I design sock knitting patterns in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I've written a book about sock knitting called The Sock Project. It's out today and I thought this would be a perfect time to talk about publishing a book, what that entails, what kind of money is involved, what contracts process are like, all of that stuff. I'm going to be going over in detail in this video in case some of you are curious about how publishing a book works. My industry is definitely niche. I'm publishing a book in the craft space. So that's obviously going to be a little bit different than if you're publishing a science fiction, fantasy, memoir, autobiography, or, a scholarly work on the history of textile spinning in Northern Alaska. I don't know. But I do think there are some universal things, and you just might be curious about how the process works because you too want to publish a book, or you're just curious in general. That's certainly me. I'm always just curious about things and how they work in general. So I'm going to go over just some of the things that I learned along the way about publishing. I'm going to be talking about money, something that we all want to know, but most of us are too polite to ask. And then I'm just going to be talking about what the process looked like, how I was approached, all of that stuff. So let's get into it. First, my new book, Upside Down. It's out today. It's the Sock Project. It is a masterclass on sock knitting. It's got 25 new patterns. I've got to plug the book before we go any further. So it's out today. Yeah, you can order it. I'm going to have all the information on how to order this book in the description below the video in case you are here because you enjoy sock knitting. If you're here because you just want to learn about publishing, I promise, give me a minute. I will get to the good stuff. I got to plug the book. So new book. Lots of new patterns in here, never before published, and then just a lot of recipes for basic socks, striped socks, vanilla socks, thick socks, rib socks, you name it. It's all in here. This is a great reference for anyone who wants to up their sock knitting skills or experienced knitters who just want to have all the recipes for all the socks in one place. It's a great book. Now let's talk about how it came to be in existence. I've gotten a lot of great questions on Instagram about this, wondering if I self-published the book or if I went through a traditional publisher. I went through a traditional publisher, Abrams Books out of New York. They approached me. So I was just, living my little life, working on my self-published sock patterns, doing my thing. And I got an email one day from an editor at Abrams Books in New York asking if I would be interested in writing a book on sock knitting. And of course I was. Very interested. This was not the first time I'd been approached by a publisher. Back in 2020, I was approached by a publisher about doing a sock book. I turned them down. I will talk more about why in a minute because that is relevant. Anyway, since then, I never felt regret about turning that first publisher down, but I had the bug in my ear. I wanted to write a book. So when that email came in from the editor at Abrams, I was super excited to have another opportunity to potentially write a book. So of course I responded right away. So for me, that's how this process was initiated. I was approached by the publisher. You can certainly approach publishers yourself. You don't have to wait for one of them to contact you. But I do believe that, the different publishing houses, their craft divisions, whatever their divisions, they are kind of on the lookout for people who could potentially produce a book for them. And especially if you have a larger social media following, I think that helps. Just because you have a built-in audience of people that you can promote the book to. So, I think they're looking for great photography. They're looking for interesting and unique things that you're creating. And then they're also looking for, do you have a lot of followers? Do you have a built-in audience? So I kind of think that's how they found me through my photography. They found me through, you know, kind of what I was doing and how that was maybe different from what other people were doing. And then they looked at my social media following, and that made a difference. So if you are interested in publishing a craft book yourself, that is one way to maybe get the attention of editors at different publishing houses, and that is growing your social media and making sure that you're presenting what you're doing in the best light possible through great photography. So what happened next? After, you know, saying, yes, I definitely want to write a book on sock knitting, the next step was the book proposal. So just because someone from a publishing house emails you and says, hey, are you interested? That's not a guarantee you're going to get to write a book. You have to come up with an idea. You have to let them know, yes, I want to write a book. Here's my vision for it, and present a proposal. So that's what I did. I created a proposal of the book that I envisioned writing and creating. And then I made a cute little PDF. It had photography in it. It had, you know, information about me, my following, my newsletter list. It had all of that. And I sent that to the editor. The editor loved the idea. So then the next step was to present my proposal multiple times to various boards at the publishing company to say, hey, this is a project that we could potentially do. What does everyone think about it? It had to get approval, multiple steps, you know, to getting approval. It had to be presented to various people and they had to sign off on it. And that takes weeks. The publishing industry moves very slow, like, I mean, really slow. So you are on pins and needles, you're submitting all this stuff. And then I'm just like waiting to hear from somebody. My life is in their hands. I've already pinned like all of my hopes on this, you know. Oh my gosh, I want to write a book so badly. So the waiting is really hard. That's something that if you decide to do this yourself, you're going to have to go into it knowing there will be a lot of waiting. You are going to pour your heart and soul into your ideas, your proposals, and then you're going to be waiting for a while it gets kicked up the ladder at the publishing company. So after a lot of waiting, I finally got my offer letter. That's the next step. Once the publishing company says, yes, we really like your idea, we want to move forward with that, they then send you an offer letter that has a general outline of the terms that you're going to eventually see in a contract. So they tell you, this is the advance that we'll give you. This is how the advance will be paid. Here's the timeline of when the manuscript would be due. Here's when we think we would publish the book. Here's the percentage that you'll get from the sale of the book itself and ebooks and all of that. It's just kind of a summary. And that's where you can negotiate if you want to. You can get an agent who can negotiate for you. I did not. You can have an attorney kind of look at that letter. You can kind of decide from there, okay, do I want to accept this offer as is, or do I want to go back and ask for something more, something different? I chose to accept it as it was. I felt like Abrams offered me a wonderful deal. Like I really felt very happy with what they offered me, and I was not interested in kind of going back and forth because I was excited to get started on the book. So I accepted the offer letter, and then from there, you have to wait for the contract to come in. And of course, once you've accepted that offer letter, you basically go into a queue at the publishing house. They have a team of in-house lawyers who, that's what they're doing. They're preparing these contracts for multiple people. I'm not the only one that's going through this process. Many other authors are also getting their contracts written up. So I had to wait a while for that contract to come in. Anyways, once I got my contract, then I had to look over that. And again, you can have an attorney look it over. Did I have an attorney look over it? No, I did not. I Googled book contract attorneys in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and like nothing came up, just injury attorneys. One law firm, I kid you not, with a guy, like he had a picture on his website of him sitting at a desk with a gold-plated AK-47 like statue on his desk. And he was an alpha attorney, according to his website. And he did personal injury and, some other stuff. So slim pickings for book contract attorneys in Oklahoma. And I felt overwhelmed by that. So I just did a lot of Googling of like legal terms, and it was pretty straightforward. Again, when you're doing a craft book, this is not like the next Dan Brown or the next Stephen King. You know, this is not some like mega bestseller that's going to have movie rights and like lots of foreign language rights. And, you know, it's a craft book. So the contract isn't that complicated for it. And I felt okay Googling it and like figuring it out on my own. It would have been nice to have a lawyer. And when I do another book, and I say when because I loved doing the first one and I am manifesting that I'm going to do another one. When I do my next book, I probably will try harder to find an attorney to look everything over just to say I did and to feel like I am being an adult and not just a kid. Like, gimme. I don't care what it says. I don't care what the terms are. Just let me sign. That's pretty much what I did with the first book. I read through it, Googled some stuff and was like, looks good to me, I guess. And so I signed it. So what did my contract say? I'm sure you're curious. And there are certainly standards across the publishing industry, and different publishing houses, I think, stay pretty close to that. They might differentiate a little. So let's talk about advances. I know a lot of you are here for that because we all are curious about money. Most of us are too polite to ask about it. And there is an issue, I think, you know, the publishing industry is very opaque. There's kind of a movement on Twitter of authors sharing their advances, kind of sharing their deals so that more people feel empowered at the negotiating table and kind of have an idea of what they're being, you know, whether what they're being offered is a good deal or not. It's kind of hard to know. It's not like there's a whole group of people where you can just go ask, hey, what was your advance for your craft book? What advance did you get for your craft book? You know, there's no Word document like on a blog somewhere. I Googled, I looked because I wanted to know. And there's nothing out there. So I had no way of knowing if my advance was standard, if it was on the low end, if it was on the high end. And that can be a little stressful. So let's talk about advances. I am going to be somewhat transparent. I will tell you that the first publishing company that approached me in 2020, they offered me a $6,000 advance. And at first I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. But advances are not paid out all at once. You don't sign the contract and then get your check for $6,000. They're paid in thirds. So you get a third of it when you sign the contract, you get a third of it when the publisher accepts the manuscript, and then you get a third of it on the publication day when the book is actually published. So that $6,000, I would have actually gotten $2,000 at a time over the course of like a year and a half. And the book that I wanted to do was a lot of work. It would be taking me away from self-publishing my patterns. I would be losing some income there because I wouldn't have as much time to kind of stick to the same self-publishing schedule that I'd been on. And my income, like, it supports my family. My husband has a job, but we need both of our incomes to survive. Stuff's gotten really expensive, like $9 for a bag of freaking grapes at the grocery store. So we need both of our incomes. So it's a big deal if I'm going to be losing income for a time working on a book. So after kind of weighing all of that, I decided that for me, 6,000 wasn't enough. And again, that's totally fine. Like, the publishing house was not wrong to offer me that. That's what they're comfortable offering. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't enough money to kind of take a risk and like sacrifice a portion of my income for a while I worked on it. Because the thing is, I have no way of knowing if that advance is all I'm ever going to get, right? Because I'm getting a percentage of book sales once the book comes out, but I have to earn my advance back before I start getting royalties. So with craft books and publishing in general, it's a different world. I had no way of knowing if my book would sell enough for me to even earn back the advance, or if it would sell enough to earn beyond so that I could get maybe some royalty payments. For all I knew, that $6,000 was all I was ever going to get for all of this work to produce that book. And in the end, as painful as it was to say no to something that I'd been dreaming about since I was a kid, I ended up going back and saying, hey, this isn't enough money. And they were like, that's what we offer to people with your social media following. It's, you know, that's what we're willing to do. And so I ended up parting ways with that publisher and saying no thanks, and again, I totally understand. They have their budget, I have mine, and the two just didn't meet in that particular instance. Fast forward to Abrams. Abrams made me a much better deal. And this is where it gets like scary because I don't know what you're allowed to talk about and not. Like, I know what my contract says. There's nothing in my contract that says I can't discuss my advance. But it's like, I'm also worried, like, does the publishing industry not like it when authors get on YouTube and start spilling all about what they're getting? And I certainly don't want, like, to be put on a list like, oh, this author over here discussed money. We're going to have to blackball her from ever getting another book deal again. Like, I don't know how any of this works. So I'm not going to be super specific, but I'll be a little specific. There's also like, you don't want people like to think that you're bragging, right? Like, I don't want people to think that I'm coming on here to be like, look what I got. I'm so amazing. Look at my amazing advance that, it's not that. It's truly wanting to share information I wish I would have had when I was going through this process. It's wanting to know, what are other people getting? Is this normal? Is it not normal? So if I can help someone going through this process just by giving them an idea of kind of what I got for my craft book, then that's great. The more information that's out there, the better. But I also don't want to like, okay, I'm just going to do it. So I'm not going to give you the specific number of what Abrams gave me for in advance, but I will give you a ballpark. It was in between $10,000 and $20,000. It was somewhere in the middle of there. It was, well, maybe not in the middle. It could have been, towards the beginning, towards the end. I'm not going to be specific, but between $10,000 and $20,000 is what they gave me for an advance. Again, paid out in thirds. So I got a third of it when I signed the contract. And then I didn't get the other third for another 9 or 10 months until I turned in the manuscript. And it's not just turning the manuscript in. They have to approve it. So you kind of go through all of the edits first. And then when they have said, okay, this is great, the manuscript is good, we've done all the edits, we accept this, we will go ahead and publish this. That's when you get the second installment. And I still haven't gotten the third installment. My book is out today, so it should be coming anytime now. I should get the third and final installment of my advance. And I felt like that the number that they offered me was awesome. I felt like for the work that I was going to be putting into this book, if I never earn another penny beyond the advance, if my, book sells a certain amount and that's enough to pay them back for the advance, earn out my advance, and not much beyond that, I'm okay with that. I feel like what I got, the result, this amazing, beautiful book, plus the money that they paid me for the advance, I feel good that I was paid for the work that I did to create this book. Hopefully the book will sell really well and earn royalties. Now let's talk about percentages. How much do I get from each book that is sold? In my case, it's 12%. Of the physical book. And then ebooks, I get 25%. And then it's less when they sell the rights to a foreign publisher. So currently, as of now, the rights to my book have been sold to a publisher in Spain. That's going to be publishing the book in Spain and in Chile, and it'll be in Spanish. And then it's also been sold to a German publisher. So my book will be coming out in German in the fall, I believe. So I get less money from them. Like whenever my book is published, I get less of a percentage from those foreign editions than I do from the original edition that's published here in the United States. But right now, anything that's under Abrams, I get 12% of the physical book price and then 25% of ebooks. But again, I have to earn out my advance first. I will not see any royalty payments unless and until my advance is earned out. So I won't know if I will make additional money beyond the advance on this book for a long time. I mean, royalty statements come out twice a year. And so my book just got released. So it's probably going to be months before I'll even find out how well it did just in the first this first initial push where, we've been doing pre-orders, we've been, now that it's out, people can buy it on the shelf. I'm not going to know for a while how well it's doing. I did speak to my editor and learned that they had to do a reprint. So they initially printed 5,000 copies of my book, and during the pre-order period, pre-orders were good enough that they had to do a reprint, and that's very exciting. And it's also why pre-orders are such a big deal to authors. So if you have authors or creators that you love and they're publishing a book that you're excited about, pre-ordering it is a really great way to support them, because it helps them show the publisher that they are worth investing in, and it helps them potentially create more books or more content that you love. So that's why pre-orders are so important to authors and why they push them so much, because it makes a difference. So your work isn't done when you stop writing it. There's a lot more work on the back end as well, just in the promotional department. And that's the part that's probably hardest for a lot of people. It's hard for me. You really got to put yourself out there and be like, please buy my book, please buy my So it's not easy, but some of you asked some really great questions on Instagram, and I hope that I answered them. The most common question I got was, did I self-publish the book or did I work through a traditional publisher? And the answer is I worked through a traditional publisher, of course. But self-publishing is a great option. If you have the resources on the front end to do that, that's a really great option. You're obviously keeping way more of the profits of the book. It's just more of a risk for you if it doesn't sell. Whereas in my case, when you work with a traditional publisher, the risk is kind of on them. They're the ones that are investing in the money to pay me the advance and to print the books and to pay the design team and the editorial team for all of their work. So they're kind of assuming all the risk, and I'm just sort of along for the ride, hoping things turn out really well. Another question I got was did I enjoy the process? And I did very much. It's a long process. Like I said, I signed my contract in spring of 2022. I turned my manuscript in February 1st of 2023. We went through all the rounds of edits. It was finally accepted, I think, in May, May of 2023. And then here we are, February 2024, and it's just now getting published. So almost 2 years. It was an almost 2-year process. It's a long process. I did all the photography. That was another question I got. Did you do all the photography? What parts of the book did you do? I did all the photography. I wrote all the patterns, wrote all the text. The whole book was my idea and brainchild. And then I had excellent, excellent support from the team at Abrams. My editor, Shauna, fantastic. Janice Kim designed the book. She's the graphic designer that's just behind how gorgeous it all looks. So that's a really cool process, because they basically send you a questionnaire, kind of describing yourself, your personality. You can send them Pinterest boards, links, things basically just, giving them inspiration. This is kind of how I envision my book looking. I sent them garbled nonsense. I think I even told them that, I love the album cover for Holes, live through this. If it could look like that, that'd be great. Oh, and somehow they deciphered that and created a book that is so perfectly me. I mean, I could not be happier. I don't know how they translated the nonsense that I sent them, but they did. So there's a lot of that when you publish a book. There's a lot of back and forth. You're filling out questionnaires so that the publishing team can create a book that is quintessentially you. And so the process was super fun, super long. But it was awesome. It was magical. I highly recommend it. If it's something that you want to do, I highly recommend, going for it and writing a book of your own. So let me know if you've got any other questions in the comments. If you are an author and want to share specifically or a ballpark figure, as I did, the advance you may have gotten for your book, feel free to go for it. Let this be a resource for other aspiring and would-be authors who are trying to get information on what other people are getting as an advance. Let's share and help make that a little more transparent, I guess, because again, I was looking for that information and found nothing. So if you feel inclined to share, go for it. And of course, if you don't have to. Don't feel pressured. Maybe it's a terrible thing to do. I don't know. Again, just flying by the seat of my pants here. But pre-orders for the book are now over. You can actually buy the physical book. So if you are into knitting, into sock knitting, I hope that you check my book out. I will have the links in the description of the video. I will also have my email address, links to all of my social media. Anything you could possibly want to know about me and how to get in touch with me, it's all in the description of the video. I hope that this provided some clarity and insight on the publishing process, at least as far as my experience with it goes. If you have any questions, leave them below. And I post new videos, my podcast, every Friday. I hope to see you back for that. You can always subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss any more videos like this. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.